Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and around mid-March, I started seeing a ton of social media buzz about this new barbecue spot in Bellevue. People were telling me that I had to try it, and the pictures look great, but I had that stupid mindset where I was just like, it's so far. Do I want to drive all the way to Bellevue? It's going to be, 25 minutes, whatever. I've got my favorite barbecue spots in Omaha, but people just kept hitting me, and my friends were just like, dude, you got to try this. And now that I've experienced it, I know exactly why they pushed me so hard. And now I want to be that same pushing force to get you to go visit my guest today. This is Scott Fogel. He owns Mission Avenue Barbecue in Bellevue. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure to have you here. So let's just start off. I'm so interested to get your answer just to this very high level question, because all it takes is a couple bites of your barbecue, and it's just like, whoa. This is smoked meat like I've experienced in Omaha or around Omaha, but there's something distinctly different to it. What is it that you think sets yours apart as something wholly unique?
Well, we're Texas style. We really focus on the brisket. Brisket is king in Texas. When I was looking to move up here, I went around, I ate a lot of places, and there's some guys up here doing some great brisket, but I noticed that there was kind of a hole in the brisket specifically up here. So that's what I learned in Texas. That's what I wanted to bring up here, and it's just a very simple, different style of cooking. We really watch our meats throughout the whole cooking process too. We don't do a time versus temperature type of cook. We treat every individual piece of meat as its own. So that means I'm feeling every single piece of meat. I'm watching every single piece of meat. I'm wrapping it when it needs to be wrapped, which means that piece might need to be wrapped. This one might not be there yet. So it's just the attention to detail more than anything, I think, is what kind of sets us apart.
I had another pitmaster and barbecue restaurant owner come on the show and talk about, like, all animals, just like all people, are different. They're shaped different. Yeah. They have different percentage of muscle, different percentage of fat. Some are bigger, some are smaller. To treat them all the same and just say, oh, my brisket, goes on the smoker for 14 hours at
it doesn't work that way.
No,
it doesn't work that way.
You're going to get a super inconsistent cook.
You're never going to get a consistent cook if you want to take that route. Another common thing is a lot of people, you'll see briskets with meat probes, like in different parts of it. We don't do any of that. Some of the best advice I was ever given by one of my mentors in Austin was throw your thermometer away. It's just going to lie to you for the exact same reasons you just mentioned, different fat content, different size. You can have a brisket, the golden numbers on brisket are 197 to 202 is what you read on the internet. That's when you pull it off, and you read about the stall at 170s. Just forget all about that. Like, I could pull off, one of my favorite questions I get is, what temperature do you pull your briskets off? And my answer is, I have no clue. I really have no clue. But I guarantee you that if I pulled one off at 202 and another one off at 202, they might be completely different. One might be done, one might not. So we do everything by look, and then that tells us when to wrap the brisket. And then at the end, when we're going to pull, that's when we start feeling different parts of the brisket and understanding that the fat has rendered properly and that slice is going to be good. So
is it all just that touch and feel that you feel separates your brisket from now? And we're not saying anything bad about other briskets in the Omaha area.
I think there's some guys here that have that down.
Right.
There definitely are. There's some good brisket in this market for sure. But that's what it is. You've got to understand what that meat, how it's constructed, for lack of a better word. Like a brisket's two muscles. You've got a really fatty one and you've got a lean one, and the fatty sits on top of the lean. So they render at a different rate. So you've got to really know where to feel and how to feel to know that fat is rendered right, or else you're going to have tough, or you could overcook. If it gets too soft on you, you're going to have a real hard time getting a nice, pretty slice out of it. So at that point, it's not the end of the world. You got to chop, but still, you miss out on a whole brisket of really nice slices. Like, they'll just fall apart on you. And so there's a little window in between, and that's what I shoot for. And it wasn't easy to learn. I remember standing over the pit at 2-3 months in going, I'm never going to get this. And then all of a sudden it just kind of clicked one day. And I've cooked well over 12,000 briskets now. And it's kind of second nature. Like, I don't even think about it anymore. People tell me about they have trouble cooking a brisket. I'm like, man, it's easy. But then I remember back trying to learn this. Not everybody's fortunate enough to be working with, like, style switch where I worked in Texas, we did 50 briskets a day. I mean, who gets to do 50 briskets every day? So you learn,
practice.
you learn pretty quick. If you don't, you need a new job.
Tell me about that moment when it clicked. What was that like for you?
It was just like a light bulb went off. Things started feeling like I finally understood just how everything felt. And I'm going like this because you feel the sides of the brisket, you know, and there's different parts of it that I will do a little feel test. And that's, I think, kind of what sets you apart is being able to cook I think that's what makes a pit master, even though I'm not a big fan of that word. I don't like, you say you mastered something, something's going to jump up and bite you at some point. I don't know, it will. But I think what makes a good pit master is being able to cook all meats just by look and feel, and then having the ability, if something does go wrong, how do you save it? And I've had lots of practice. I've been in lots of situations, so setting pits on fire, all sorts of fun stuff. So pretty much I've seen, I'll never say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. So I think being able to react also helps us out quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. I would say one of the other things, at least from my point of view, you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because you know more than I do. The other major thing that separates your restaurant and your barbecue from anything else I've had around here is the rub. It is, from at least from what I can tell, it's salt and pepper, and it's very peppery. Like you get that pepper. It's
that's
pepper
the
forward.
Texas for you.
It's got a little spice to it. I love it, and it creates a brilliant bark on the outside. Sure.
And I understand that's not for everyone, but that is Texas style black pepper and salt. And I've had people tell me I need to sell my rub, and I'm like, well, you've probably got it in your cabinet already at home. But yeah, pretty much our flavor profile is straight up salt and pepper. And I'm an open book. I'll show anybody anything. I'll tell you what I do, because it's really about the time and the experience and your fire control, your fire management, your temperature control. That's what it's all about. That you just have to kind of experience for yourself. But I'll tell you anything I do. Sometimes we'll put a little bit of granulated garlic on the ribs as well. But other than that, we're pretty much a straight up salt and kosher pepper, salt. Yeah, that's it.
How do you teach that? Like, how do you teach employees? Because you talk about how it's all sight, it's all feel, it's all about just experience.
It just comes from doing it over and over and over and over and over again every day. Down to I have a very specific way I expect my briskets to be trimmed. Same with my ribs. It's just doing it over and over and over and over again. And believe it or not, the seasoning is not exactly easy. You get somebody in there that's new to it, and like, you got to control that as well. Like, it can get real salty or real peppery real quick. So it's just all by feel, though. So been doing it a long time. Really is what it is.
So I feel like when we discuss barbecue, so often we divide the country into these regions. You got Kansas City, you got Memphis, you got Alabama, you got North Carolina, and then Texas is usually just kind of thrown in as, Texas-style barbecue.
Sure.
But Texas is huge.
It is.
And there are all kinds of different regions and pockets around Texas that have different styles of barbecue.
You get into South Texas, you're going to deal with some guys who are going to be working with mesquite.
Right.
You get over into East Texas, and you're going to find some guys that are working with hickory. I'm from the Central Texas region, which is Austin and surrounding areas, which is going to be more post oak. And they've all got a little bit different flavor profile depending on where you are in the state of Texas. But right now, Central Texas barbecue seems to be about the most popular in the world. I mean, I can't tell you the international people that I've met in the past 10 years in this business in Austin. Tons of Australians, tons of Europeans. They're having pits sent over from Austin left and right, and it's becoming a huge part of their culture as well. And I think that's pretty cool, because ultimately the thing that barbecue, no matter where you're from, has in common is it's mainly about friends and family and getting everybody together. And that's pretty much the common denominator. Then you get people that want to argue about who's got the best region, but what's more important to me is just that aspect of it, the friends and family part. That's what it's all about to me. Like, I do my style, I try to stay true to what I learned, but so far it's been great. It's been really good. It's been a career that I don't regret getting into at all. Never looked back.
Well, speaking of friends and family, we were just talking off the mics, and you said something that was really interesting to me, and that, you know, not only is it just customers having that friends and family atmosphere, but you as an as a cook and someone who worked in restaurants
For sure.
down in Texas, there's a very familial feel among restaurants and, sorry, I'm going to use the word pit masters.
Yeah, that's fine.
Pit experts, whatever we want to call
Sure.
that person who's great at smoking meats. But it's a real like community. Can you kind of tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, in Texas, it's a really big community. Everybody knows everybody. I mean, there are some rifts in the community like any other, but for the most part, everybody knows each other and is very friendly and very supportive of each other. And that's a really neat thing about the Texas culture and the Texas barbecue culture in particular. It's, I've got a friend who got into the barbecue business after being career military, and he was front lines, deployed, severe PTSD, and he credits barbecue with literally saving his life because he found like the same kind of brotherhood within that community that he had in the military. And he's told me that on more than one occasion. And it's that kind of atmosphere, and it's really fun to be a part of, which I'm new here. I haven't found that up here yet, but hopefully someday. Most of the people I do know here are my customers too. So we have some great regulars that have really been supporting us like extremely well.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah, Mission Avenue Barbecue is still pretty new. I believe you guys opened in March.
Yeah, we just completed our second month being open.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and we started out, I just opened the doors. I didn't push or promote. I just wanted to kind of ease into it, let my staff get used to barbecue, because barbecue is a different animal than other restaurants. And that lasted about half a day. And then we had hit the social medias and we were slammed for a good month straight.
Barbecue is a different animal than other restaurants. How so?
Well, first of all, when you're out, you're out. It's not like you're quick firing something. When you're out of brisket, you don't just go throw another one on, like cooking another burger. So there has been issues with us running out of things, which it can irritate some people, but I think we've pretty much dialed those in, and we're figuring out our pars, trying to find a pattern every day of what we need to be cooking. We'll still have the occasional day where we get hit harder than we expected, and we're out by 6. But for the most part, we've gotten most of those issues taken care of. Like, we're lasting through the whole day, so that shouldn't be an issue any longer. But yeah, it's been very well. It's been going very well so far.
I've heard that frustration from other barbecue restaurant owners as well. Just that people, especially here, I imagine in Austin it's more part of the culture, but people here just don't understand the concept of a meat selling out.
Right.
And I can understand if you've been excited, you've been thinking, oh man, I'm going to go get this brisket. You've been thinking about it all day and the restaurant doesn't have it. I can understand that. But from a customer point of view, there also needs to be that understanding of exactly what you said. I mean, we've talked so much already in just these 10, 15 minutes about the amount of feel and expertise it takes to slowly create these flavors over multiple hours.
Oh, multiple hours.
You're not just throwing another burger on the flat top or putting another sandwich together. You can't just make a brisket appear out of nowhere. It takes so much time.
From start to finish, my briskets, it's probably a 15-hour process, and I'm including the trimming and seasoning in there.
Yeah.
Anybody that has a question about it, anyone's welcome to come chat on me for a day if they want, but they better get a good night's sleep before they come, because my day is a very, very long day. It's a very long day, and it takes a lot of time to do what we do. You better enjoy it, or you're not gonna go last long in this business. But my day starts at 5:30 in the morning, and it ends somewhere around 2 in the morning. So it's a full day. It's a long day with a couple of naps throughout the day in between when I can get them.
And here you are giving an hour to this dopey podcast. Thank you so much, Scott.
This is great.
I already appreciated you coming, but now I appreciate it even more.
Yeah.
So I want to tease some taste buds by getting into a few of your meats, and you already obliged me. We talked brisket already, unless there's more you want to talk about with brisket, but I feel like we got into that pretty good. I'm interested in your pork.
Okay.
Because Texas barbecue is not known for pork. It's beef, it's sausage, it's ribs, like pork.
Pulled pork is kind of an afterthought.
I was going to say that exact thing. Like, I was looking at some of the websites at previous places that you worked at, and it's present.
It's definitely
offered, but it's definitely not highlighted. But your pork, it is so juicy, and you can cut that with like a spork. It is so good.
Sure.
How what made you say pork isn't something that's been emphasized during my career, but I want this to be a part of my menu here.
Well, I knew that pork was a bigger part of the culture up here than it was in Texas. That was one of the, and if I'm going to do anything, I want to do it the best I possibly can. I don't want to, and pork, especially pork butt, tends to be, in my opinion, people will under season it. It's a big piece of meat. It can hold a lot of seasoning, so it can turn out bland. The other thing that I see with it is they don't cook it long enough, so it can be tough too. Pork is one of those things I suggest to people if they're just getting into smoking, start with that because it's really pretty easy. I always cook the fat cap up. I wait for the fat cap to split, then I wrap it. I cook it along with my briskets. I cook it almost as long as I do my briskets, and that it's got that bone. Once that slides out, you're good. And I just do a heavy seasoning. It's one of the few things that I actually mix a rub in a tub, and I actually roll them in there. So I make sure I get a good seasoning. Everything else we season by hand, but the pork we go heavy on. And I've been known to play with the rub a little bit on that one. That one can be a little different depending on the day you're in. I'm still trying to dial it in, but I've added, it's definitely salt and pepper based. That's the base of everything, 50-50. But on the pork butt in particular, sometimes I'll add a little bit of chili pepper or powder. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of granulated garlic, just play with the flavor profile a little bit. But basically, I just make sure it's seasoned very, very well. And I make sure that bone comes out every single time. Mm-hmm. So I know it's done.
Mm-hmm. People, if you think you've had good pulled pork, or if you think pulled pork isn't good, go get some of Scott's pork.
I have a hard time eating all of it now. So I've been around it so long.
Yeah.
But the real sleeper on the menu is the turkey.
You are just on it. I was just about to ask you about the turkey.
And the turkey is on the menu because of me.
Okay, well, tell me why.
Because I really can't eat the heavy meats anymore. The brisket, the ribs, the pulled porks. It's so heavy. And I've been around it and doing it so long that I really like the turkey. Like the turkey is just something that I've personally liked. So I've spent a lot of time dialing that one in. And I've got the turkey figured out.
Okay, so let's talk about the turkey, because turkey is normally something I avoid because
you're not the only person. We've heard that from a lot of
so many.
The only way we've gotten it to sell is we started handing out samples, and now we've got a serious base of people that come in just for turkey.
Right, yeah. Because I mean, turkey is so often dry, bland. I mean. 90% of America has no idea how to cook a turkey, and yet we're all cooking it every Thanksgiving. Right. And so we have it, and we're just like, okay, I don't need turkey again for 364 days. But I had one of my followers and a loyal listener of this show, Mike Johnson, shout out to you, you're amazing. He kept hitting me up, and he was like, dude, this turkey will change how you think about turkey. So tell me, how do you take this meat that everyone associates with just being so incredibly average and inject that kind of life into it? Because your turkey is anything but dry and bland.
It's how you cook it, really. It's all in the cooking process. That is the one piece of meat that we actually do use a meat probe on, because I have a very specific temperature of where I want it to come off and start resting, and that is actually about 10 degrees below what the USDA says that you should. They say 165. I pull them at 155. We wrap them in foil, and then we put them in a warmer with the rest of the meats, which it will naturally raise that temperature, and you will eventually hit around 165 to 170, which is my mark where I want it to be. If you pull it at 165, we found that it'll rise into like the 180s, and it can even creep into the 190s, and that's when you start drying out. That's when you start drying out. And to be honest, 155 is perfectly safe to eat. It is. It's just if you go to any culinary school, they're gonna suggest you pull some poultries off at 155, and because it'll continue to cook. So you're not in any food safety danger, but you're also not going to dry out the bird. So we've been doing that for years now, and it's been great. And again, it's just a salt and pepper rub. That's all it is, salt and pepper. We have a style that we cook. We cook fresh. Everything is fresh. We don't even have a freezer.
Oh wow, really?
No, not even. We're
there's not a lot of room.
We're limited
for a
on
freezer.
space, so we have our refrigeration, and that's it. So the only thing that we use out of a can is ketchup, and we use that as the base of our barbecue sauce, which is all made in house. All three of our barbecue sauces are. All of our sides are made daily. Our beans, corn, potato salad, slaw, everything made daily. We don't get complex or complicated. We just get fresh, good ingredients, and we let it speak for itself. Basically, that and the time and the smoke from the wood, and that's our seasoning. We just keep it simple and fresh. And I think people tend to overcomplicate things sometimes. I've seen rubs with like 25 ingredients in them. First of all, it's not cost effective, and second of all, I just don't think it's necessary. Let the meat speak for itself. We use a very good brisket. We do use a high quality brisket. We use a Nyman Ranch cab brisket, so that it's a very good brisket. It's quality. That's basically the name of the game. We don't get into the Wagyus and stuff like that. Very expensive, and it's almost like cheating. We're supposed to be taking a really bad piece of meat, a tough piece of meat, and making it spectacular, so part of me wants to get a select sometime and just get the cheapest one I possibly can and see how it turns out. There's a place in Texas called Snow's Barbecue. They're famous.
Oh, world famous.
World
yeah,
famous.
Snow's
Tootsie.
is amazing.
Old Tootsie. They've been #1 on the Texas Monthly Top 50 list, which comes out every 4 years. I think they've only had 3 out, and she's been #1 twice. And it's because she uses a select brisket. That's what they use. Straight up the cheapest brisket they can get, and they turn it into brisket gold. So, but right now I'm really happy with the Nyman Ranch briskets that we're getting. So
nice. So the last menu item I wanted to ask you about is the tacos. Because you could take, we've talked about how great all your meats are. You could take any of those, just throw them in a flour tortilla, maybe throw some onion and cilantro, whatever you want to throw on top of them, and say, there you go. And people would love it. That would be a great taco.
Oh, and that's a thing that people are doing left and right in Texas right now. That is a very common thing. I noticed it wasn't so common up here, so I figured I'd try it, and I'm still trying to get some traction on the taco part of the menu, but the people that love it. But
yes, I'm among that group. And people need to try your tacos. And what I wanted to ask you about is each meat specifically is paired with
a different garnish.
Yes,
for sure.
So if you get a brisket taco, it's got the guac, it's got the red salsa. That's wildly different from
the
what's
tortilla cheese.
Yes, on the turkey taco. How did you pair the flavors of those meats with what's going to go well in this taco together?
Well, I designed kind of the sauces around the meats. So we have 3 different sauces. We have our traditional Texas red, which has got a lot of black pepper in it. That goes great with beef. We have more of a mustard-based one that's got a serrano kick to it, so it's a little spicier. That one pairs wonderfully with poultry. And then we've got or pork. That one really goes well with pork. And then the third one we have is basically it's a tomatillo barbecue sauce, and that one goes great with poultry. That one's the one that we use on the turkey taco. And basically it was just trial and error. Just what goes good with what, It's we've been doing this a long time, and in Texas, tacos are as big as brisket. So, in Texas, the scene has progressed a lot more than it has in other parts of the country. You're getting guys in Texas now that are up for James Beard's awards. You're not gonna be successful in Texas with your traditional barbecue menu anymore. You're not going to make it. If you just walk in and you've got potato salad, beans, and meats, people are pushing. You got guys that are doing Indian flavors. There's guys doing Egyptian flavors. There's all sorts of stuff.
Really?
The Tex-Mex thing has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to elevate it a little bit to make it down there. And so I'm trying to bring some of that here and slowly work it in. But some of it, there's been some pushback on, and they're not quite ready for it. We were doing some crazy stuff in Texas. We were pickling pineapple with jalapenos at the same time.
Sounds
So it was
awesome. A little
spicy.
sweet heat with the pickle, the acid.
And these were going to be the sides that we were selling with our meats. We did a pickled strawberry infused with Thai basil, which was like sweet. And there's actually science behind it. Like the reason you get the pickled red onions and the dill pickles is the vinegars cut through the fattiness of the meats. So we started adding more and more pickled items, like a lot of fruits. We did beets. We did some crazy stuff, and it went over really, really, really well in Texas. But I don't think they're ready for that up here yet. Like pineapple with your brisket, what? Strawberries with your but it'll blow your mind. And when you walk out after eating something like that instead of potato salad and beans and mac and cheese, you don't feel like you got to find a couch and need a 4-hour nap. So, so it's just trying to progress what we're doing already, culinary. just push it further, make it a little bit more unique is what we're going for.
Well, that's another thing that I love about Mission Avenue is you go to so many barbecue restaurants in Omaha. Again, you guys doing a different thing.
It's nationally. I mean, you're going to find this anywhere. It's not unique to Omaha.
Yeah, but I mean, the sides. It's going to be barbecue beans, mayo-based coleslaw,
and
probably fries
and a mustard potato salad,
cornbread, and potato salad.
Right.
Nothing wrong with those
There's
things.
Nothing wrong with that.
But what you just talked about, what did I just list off? Heavy. Yeah, you're going to go home and need to nap.
Sure.
The things that you're offering, you've got the street corn, you've got pickled vegetables.
The tomato cucumber salad is
wonderful.
It's hugely popular.
It's amazing. And even just offering like those pickled onions on the side, like that kind of almost acts as like a palate cleanser, I think.
Sure.
I guess I don't really have a question based off that. I love that I went in there for the first time and I was just like,
but that's the reason that stuff
different.
is there. It's there to kind of cut the fat. And we're experimenting now with a watermelon salad for the summer.
Let's go.
Which is going to have some cotija cheese in it, and then maybe a little bit of serrano, so it'll have a little bit of kick to it. It should be pretty good. And I've got a chef that's working with me that we're trying to come up with some cool new things. So,
can you tease anything out, or is that all kind of under locks right now? We won't hold you, we won't hold your feet to the fire. Like if you say something, we won't say like, "Oh,
no." I'll tease you with the watermelon one. There's some other things that I think that are going to come too. It's just trying to source some things first and make sure I can get it.
Okay.
I'd like to start doing some barbacoa, like traditional barbacoa, and that means using traditional cheek meat. But that's one of those things I'm kind of nervous about as well because I don't know how cheek meat is going to be received by people up here.
People go for cachete. If that's how it's pronounced, cachete. I'm not sure, but on taco menus, I absolutely love it.
It's some of my favorite meat there is. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. Your specials. So you've got a set menu, but you will unleash specials.
I'm rotating things in.
Yeah, every once in a while. You've had pastrami, you've had brisket mac and cheese, you had the Texas two-step, which was like a brisket and pulled pork Frito pie kind of.
The thing's ridiculous.
How do you come up with those?
Well, the Texas two-step is actually a tribute to a place in Texas that they call theirs the Gut Pack. And it is in Waco, Texas. It's been there for a long, long time, called Vitex Barbecue. And I went to Baylor University. So that thing was basically the hangover cure for 4 years straight. So, you went there on a Saturday and you had a line out the door. Great owners. They knew everybody. We went back years after graduating and they still knew who we were, So that's kind of like my little tribute to them. The other ones I've just kind of come up with on my own. So the pastrami, I love pastrami. A lot of times when you see a special out there, I'm putting it out there because it's something that I want to eat is how I kind of do it. Like tired of brisket, tired of pulled pork. What can we do? Let's do pastrami. So I was able to they take a long time to do. That's the problem. I did 2 of them. They take about 3 weeks to brine.
Pastramis, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that first time we did it, great traction. Second time, not so much. If I feel demand for it, we'll do it again. We'll do it. We'll add it back in. And then once winter comes, we'll also be doing some stuff that is going to be more winter-based, some cool chilies and things like that.
Well, I'm just going to throw it out there, try and speak it into existence. But in doing my research, I saw you, while working at Alice's restaurant, you did a brisket banh mi.
We did.
That looked just flat out spectacular. And if that would ever grace your menu,
I would absolutely do that. We've had a lot of success.
Door.
We've also done it with pulled pork as well.
Was that better?
I think it depends on the person.
Okay.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. That banh mi we did there, we actually smoked the brisket and then we smoked it to where it was almost done. And then we sliced it and then we battered it and we deep fried it and then we built our banh mi around that. Yeah, that's the one. So I don't have a fryer, so I can't do that particular one. I have no plans on getting a fryer either. But yeah, the banh mi is definitely, that was one of the very first things that I started messing around with. It was kind of like outside of the realm of traditional barbecue, and when I first got into this business, and it's been very successful over the years. It's a little spicy. I've noticed that's the other thing I have to do here. I have to tone it down a little bit.
We're weak with our spice up here.
You're a little behind Texas on what you can handle as far as the heat goes, but we haven't had any trouble with that at all. We just toned it down a little bit.
Well, we just got to get more people into your restaurant, get our
Right.
tolerance
Get
built
tolerance
up a little bit more.
I lived in Denver for 5 years, and when I moved to Denver, after that 5 years, when I went back home, I couldn't eat the heat anymore.
Really, your palate changed that much?
It did over those 5 years, just because they didn't have the spicy stuff everywhere you went like Texas did, and yeah, it took me some time to get back to used to it again. But I was definitely after that 5 years, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it too. I think I would thrive in Texas.
Yeah.
But oh well, we'll just slowly have to get it better up here. Just raise people's tolerance a little bit. I want to get into your background because it is extensive and it is fascinating.
Sure.
Like you cut your teeth working at some of Austin's renowned barbecue joints, like Styles Switch, Valentina's Tex-Mex Barbecue, Whitfield's, Alice's Restaurant. But I want to go back even further. Mm-hmm. So you grew up in Dallas.
I did.
But your love of brisket was actually developed in New Mexico.
It was.
So I want to hear the full story about you and Wayne Stallings and how that man inspired you to be what you are today.
Well, I got up to, after college, I went to a small ski resort town called Angel Fire, New Mexico. And I went up there to teach skiing and snowboarding for 1 year, and it turned into 3. And up there, I met Wade. And it turned out he was not only from Texas, he was also from the exact same neighborhood that I grew up in. He was about 15 years older than I was, though. And he was building a house, had a big piece of property. I think he had 10 acres up there. And in the summers, I would go work with him and help him build his house. And he had an old hot water heater, a residential hot water heater. And he had completely gutted it. And he had cut a door in it and put hinges on it, and he put a rack on one end. He had it sitting on cinder blocks, and it was at a slant. And he would build a fire in the low end, and he put the brisket in the top end. And he'd set that thing before we'd start working, and then at the end of the day, it'd almost be done. And it just fascinated me, just something that would take that long to cook and taste like that when you get done with it. And I'm telling you, they were not good briskets back then either. We thought they were, but we really didn't know what we were doing. So from there, I bought one of those, I call them R2D2 Webers, and that was my first little pit. Oh, what we were pulling off there was so bad, but we thought it was great. We didn't have the internet back then. I mean, we're talking 97, 98, 99. We didn't have YouTube that you could go to and 1,500 videos to see what you're doing. So it was a lot of trial and error. We didn't know how to trim one to save our lives. I mean, they were half fat, but it was just fascinating that you could come up with something, and it took that long to do it. But for it to come out the way it did, it just fascinated me. My grandfather was also big into smoking meats, but he would bury his briskets in the ground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he would build a fire in a hole and then let it cool down, and then he would wrap them up and he would throw them in the ground, bury them for 12 hours. So that was a little different. I don't think that's legal to do in the commercial restaurant world.
So what I know that you didn't. You talked about you were fascinated by this process of creating this brisket.
Sure.
But you didn't go right into that professionally.
No. God, no.
You still had a lot of career before you got into restaurants. But did that plant something in your mind?
I've always wanted to be in the restaurant business. Always. I didn't know that it was specifically barbecue, but I always did. But I was in the commercial construction world. I'm a reformed project manager is what I like to call myself. Hated it. And I guess it was about 10 years ago. Construction runs with the economy. I got laid off, and I decided, I want to go do something I want to do. So you mentioned the places I worked, like Valentina's. I specifically went there. I didn't just go try to find a job, and I knew who I wanted to work for and with. And at the time, I had a good friend working over at Franklin, and he got real upset that I didn't come work with them. But I wanted to. Miguel at Valentina's, this was Aaron Franklin had already hit the #1 spot on the Texas Monthly list. Miguel had all the buzz around him. He was the guy who was up and coming. So I wanted to come work with him. And about 2 years in working with him, we got on that list. So that was a pretty cool experience. And then after that, I went over to Style Switch, which was also on that list. So I've worked at 2 of them. And both of those places are fantastic. If you're ever in Austin, you got to give them a try. I mean, they're legendary, but you'll hear from plenty of other people than just me. So I had some really good mentors, and I paid attention. But I also paid my dues. Like, first 3 years I was in this business, I went to work at 2 a.m. and I got off about 11 or noon, like for 3 years straight. That completely flipped my world upside down.
And you thrived on that?
I got to where I actually loved it. I loved the peace and quiet. I loved the night. I loved seeing the sun come up in the morning, and then it was like the calm before the storm. And then the line of 100 people would hit around 7:30 in the morning because they did a full service breakfast taco that was amazing as well. Just something I've toyed with adding here as well. I just don't know how it would go over.
Sign me up.
Right.
I'm one person, but
something that I might start on Saturdays
and
then see if we can grow it to do eventually like every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really is good. Brisket on a breakfast taco is fantastic. It really is. And we will use like the trimmings of we take full spares and I trim them down myself just because I don't like the St. Louis. I think they're too small for what you're paying for. So I trim my own down, and all of that trimming, we make a in-house chorizo. We'll grind it and make a in-house chorizo, and it's a smoked chorizo too. We do it on the pit, and that on a breakfast taco is insane. It's insanely good, and I haven't done that since we've been here yet. So these are things that are coming.
If you ever want to test some stuff out, don't hold back, my friend.
Right.
So I want to go back though. You talked about Valentina's when you started working there. It wasn't yet recognized among the best of the best, but it
had the buzz in Austin. It did not have the buzz nationally that it's gotten.
Yes, but it was still well known. So you're going and you're applying there, and you're a guy who's got
It's well known, but keep in mind also, it is a food trailer.
Yeah,
it's not a brick and mortar. It is literally a tiny, tiny little food trailer when I started.
Right. But you're applying there, and you've got no professional experience.
No.
You've got like some home smoking experience,
right?
And like, did they just accept you right away, or what were like those first couple of days and weeks for you?
I went and had a conversation with Miguel.
Okay,
and he definitely needed people, and we walked away. And I really liked the way he did his interview process. He said, he's had a lot of people coming through the doors, but it's a high turnover. Like, a lot of people don't know what they're getting into when they get into production barbecue. It's not turning on the football game and cracking a beer like it is at home and waiting, watching the clock. It's super high volume and it's very intense. The way he did it, he said, "Why don't you come work with me for 2 weeks? And 2 weeks, let's decide if you like it or not." And there were times in that first 2 weeks where I just wanted to walk out. My feet hurt so bad after standing on them for 12 hours. Like, first thing he did was he threw 17 briskets in front of me. He said, "I'll be back in 30 minutes, trim them up." And I was like, I can trim a brisket, but I usually spend about 20 minutes on one. And came back, I maybe had 2 or 3 of them done, none of them to his standard, And he's like, "You got to pick it up." And so now I can do one in about 2.5 minutes. And he couldn't touch me by the time I was done by the time I left there. But I that's how I got in there, and it was very high pressure. Way more high pressure than my shop right now. Like, we were doing 42 briskets a day, 25 racks of ribs a day, 8 pork butts a day, 12 chickens, homemade chorizo. We were doing it all, and there were only 3 of us, so we were doing a lot. I mean, it was one of those jobs, like, you got there and you didn't look up until you left, and it seemed like you were there for an hour because you constantly had meat to trim, stuff to get on the pit, stuff to check, and we were also using offset pits there and cooking with mesquite, which mesquite is a whole nother animal. You can really ruin some stuff with mesquite. But that means you have to hand feed the fire about every 10, 15 minutes too. So you've got that. You have to have someone there 24 hours a day. Like, have to. And his expectations are super high. Since then, he's been on diners, drive-ins, and dives. He's been all over the world cooking, actually. So I've been very fortunate with the mentors and teachers I've had.
Mm-hmm.
But I also took it very seriously too. I treated it.
Sure.
I went to work with a bunch of high school kids that were making $12 an hour. I was making $12 an hour too, but I was there to learn with purpose. And from day one, though, he knew that I wanted to open my own place, and I did. That's exactly what I did.
I think a lot of people listening to what you just described would say, nope, I never want to do that. That is not my line of work in any way, shape, or form.
That's why I'm an open book. Like, I'll
Right.
tell you what I do because I know you're not going to do it. You might do it 2 or 3 times a year, but first of all, the cost of a brisket, they're so expensive now. Second of all, as long as it takes, your average backyard guy's probably going to do 4 a year, and it's going to be on Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July, those are the worst days to be in the barbecue business. You don't get much business because everybody's doing it in their backyard. So I'll tell you everything. I'll help anybody out with any questions they have. But it's really just doing it over and over and over and over and over every day.
Well, I wanted to ask, for a profession where so many people could not exist in that environment, much less thrive, what do you think it is about your personality or your sensibilities that allows you to not only tolerate it, but thrive in it?
I think it's my work ethic, honestly. And I think that comes from my grandfather and my dad. I mean, both of those guys were hardcore construction guys. And that's no easy business. And I was in that for 15 years as well. I mean, that's sometimes overnight project. I remodeled a grocery store in Texas. That was an overnight project for a good 8 months. From 7 at night to 7 in the morning was when they would let us work. I built a lot of schools, a lot of weekend work. So you've got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with long hours and not a lot of time off, especially getting it going. Like, I don't really have a day off now. Like, I know we're closed 2 days, but that doesn't mean that I'm off. I'm constantly doing something.
So tell people about that, because I hear that so often. People will say, oh, why is my favorite restaurant always closed on Mondays? I can't stand how they're closed on Mondays. Tell people that even on days where you're closed, the restaurant might not be open, but you're still working a full day.
I'm still working on a full
Please,
day.
pull back the curtain. Tell us about
probably
that.
More hours than your normal person, even on my days off. You need a day to reset, especially in barbecue. Like, we take the pit down and we clean everything out of it. You got to take all the grease out of it. We clean all the grates. We take it completely apart and deep clean it every Monday. Then we have to get it going again. And once that thing is going again, it doesn't really go off. It starts on Monday and it doesn't go off until Saturday morning when the ribs and the turkeys for that day are off. Then it's off. And then Sunday, the real reason we close on Sundays is we just didn't have any business on Sundays. Sundays was not a good day. So we decided to add Tuesdays and close on Sundays. We were originally closed Mondays and Tuesdays. We'll always be closed on Monday just because I have to have that day to take down the pit. I have to have the day to deep clean everything and start all over again for the next week. But like I said, my day is long. It starts at 5:30 in the morning where I put ribs and turkey on. And those are for lunch that day. They have to be off by, we open 11:30. They have to be off by 11, and sausage. All of that gets cooked. So once that gets cooked, taken out front, then it's brisket and pork butt time. I get back while my staff is starting lunch service. I'm back there trimming briskets and pork butts, getting those going for the next day. I like to have those on by 2 in the afternoon. If I can have them on by 2 in the afternoon, that means I know that I can get them off by about 2 in the morning. 2 to 3 in the morning, depending on size and if everything goes right. So I get those rolling. At that point, I usually go take a little nap if I can. Then I'm back at some point, generally around the 8 to 10, somewhere between 8 to 10. I'm back wrapping, and I'm back looking at all the meats. And then after that, about 1 in the morning is when I get back up there, and I'm not going to leave until all of them are done. And some of them might be done then. I might have to wait on some of them, and then they all go into a resting warmer that's not electric. It's just it's called a Cambro. Are you familiar with what a Cambro is? Yep, it goes in a Cambro, and I rest those briskets and pork butts until about until I get the ribs and turkey on, which is 7 o'clock in the morning is my drop. They have to be on by 7. So at that point, then everything goes into our regular warmer, and we get ready for the day. We start making our beans, our corn, our potato salad, all of it. So every day, it's just a routine. But it's a long, long day. It's a long day.
Just listening to you talk about barbecue and the amount of effort and work that you put into it, you can tell this is like, it's in your blood. It is.
It has to be.
It is a part of you. And you were in barbecue nirvana in
Yes,
Austin.
it was.
So how the heck did you end up in Bellevue, Nebraska, opening a restaurant?
Well, my father lives up here,
Okay.
and he was getting to the point where he wanted somebody around, some family around, and we looked at moving him to Austin, but Austin has just become unaffordable. It's gotten so expensive. We looked around Austin. We were at first our plans were okay, we'll move you down there, but there was two things about Austin. It didn't have a VA, and it had just gotten unaffordable. Like you can't touch a house in Austin for under $500,000 anymore, and that's not going to be anything that's going to be spectacular by any means. You can't get a condo for under 300 anymore. Like, and that's just starting. Everything has gotten so expensive in that town that it just made more sense for me to come up here. And at the time, I was consulting for some restaurant groups in Texas, and I kind of wanted to get back into having my own restaurant again, and I could do that here. I could do that. So we found this property. It already had a commissary kitchen in it, which was the big expense. It was an old dentist's office for years.
Really? I thought it might have been a house. It was a dentist's
house
office
originally, and then for, I think, like 30 years, it was a dentist's office. And
that is a wild evolution for a building.
It is. That's why it says on the front door when you walk in, no drugs or cash kept on premises. But and then I guess about 5 years ago, somebody came in and leased the place and put a commissary kitchen in. And I'm not sure what they were doing. They weren't doing whatever they were doing there. They were cooking there and taking it elsewhere. So when I walked in and I saw it, the kitchen was the main thing that was already there. So the rest we were able to do ourselves. So we finished it out completely 100% all by ourselves. We did everything there, and with the construction background I have,
probably didn't hurt.
Yeah. I'm not going to say I enjoyed it, but we got it done. So I'm open. So that's all that matters right now.
We talked about all the previous stops that you had, all the places that you worked, and you've eaten barbecue all over the country.
Sure.
Now that it was like time to open your own place and get to express yourself through your food and instead of cooking someone else's, what was that like for you? Did you find yourself?
Well, this is my third one actually that I've opened. So
okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah. So most of the stuff has been tried and true. Like
okay.
I already had a pretty good roadmap to follow.
Okay.
Especially after being in this business and COVID, we really had to get it. Like you had to get original during COVID. That was really tough. So we learned a lot of tricks during it was a double-edged sword. It was horrible, but we came out learning a lot of stuff because there was no roadmap on how to handle that either. So, playing with different things and trying to give people different varieties and staying true to the traditional Texas meats, but you can play with everything else, So, everything that we're doing has been tried before and true. Like we're not really throwing out too much that we haven't done before.
Okay.
So.
First day open, I believe, at least from what I could tell on Facebook, was March 30th. Mm-hmm. You sold out that day. Mm-hmm. When that day comes to mind, what do you remember most about it?
Just chaos, controlled chaos, really. We got hit by the base. Offutt hit us hard that day. I mean, it was a sea of camouflage and flight suits in there, and I wasn't sure how it was going to be. That's why I kind of wanted to open up without promoting. I knew that we were going to get business. We'd had plenty of. I mean, I was working there every day remodeling the place, trying to get it open.
People could see something.
And I also had tons of people stop in during that process, so they were waiting. It was just, I knew that it was going to be crazy. I just didn't know it was going to be crazy that quick. It literally, like the word spread like in 3 hours, and we were slammed. We were absolutely slammed, and we sold out every day for I think almost the first 2 weeks, just trying to keep up. And that's when I made the decisions to stop doing chicken and add more ribs because people were getting really angry that we weren't cooking enough ribs. And I'm doing 2 rounds of them now. So like I get my first round off, and then I got another round that comes off for dinner just to make sure that everybody can get what they need, or what they want. We
talked a little bit about the spice and adjusting the spice palette because that's so much different here than it is in Texas. What are some other things that you've noticed, some big differences that you've had to adjust to between the Midwest and the Texas palette?
The spice was definitely the big one. the expectation of like a sweet sauce or a sweet bean, that was a little different too. I've had a lot of people want cornbread too. That's something that I have done that at one of my previous restaurants. But it was a jalapeno cheddar cornbread. Of course, we like to kick
Still
things
savory.
up a little
Yeah.
bit more. I think it's the sweet profile that people want up here. A lot of people,
Us
some do.
Midwestern love our sugar, I guess.
Yeah, like in the barbecue, it's like a lot of them are used to that sweeter Kansas. It makes sense. I mean, regionally where they're located, that's what they've had their entire lives, so that's what they associate with barbecue. So I come in with something a little different, and it's thrown some people through a loop. But if you just try to understand that I'm trying to keep it traditional to my region and where I came from. I came here to specifically bring that style here. Like I don't want to be the sweet guy. That's not why I'm here. And it's just educating people that there's different styles of it out there. And for the most part, like I said, it's been a very small percentage of people that have actually complained. But there are some people that are serious about the way they like their style of barbecue, and mine is not it. And I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. But it doesn't mean that we've taken any less effort in doing what we're doing. I mean, we're absolutely putting 100% of our heart and soul in everything we do every day.
That is, so easily recognizable throughout this conversation.
Yeah.
There's no corners being cut at your restaurant.
No, and sometimes that gets exhausting. But it's just I have standards, and I won't we won't reheat. I would rather sell out than reheat. Like I know that for a fact I've been served reheated ribs here on way more than one occasion, and I will not do that. That is not part of my business model. Like I'm never going to try to pass off yesterday's sliced brisket for today. That's not going to happen. Like people spend too much money on this. Like they need to know that it is quality and it is fresh, and that's really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're kind of running up against the clock here, but
Sure.
I've got a couple more questions, and I especially want to get a couple like quick hitters at you, just some barbecue related questions. I know we talked earlier. You're really into the turkey now because it's just not so.
It's just
heavy.
something I've always liked. I've always liked it. It's the one thing that it's never gotten old: turkey and sausage.
Okay, so I'm curious if you could hit the reset button and you're not sick of brisket or pork or ribs or anything else. If you could have one barbecue meat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It'd probably still be the turkey. I mean, even when I came into this business, I loved smoked turkey. If the second would be brisket for sure, though.
Okay.
Or beef rib. Beef rib's fantastic.
Beef ribs. Oh my gosh,
They're
those big dino ribs.
Yep, the big dino ribs. Which I'm toying around doing it. It's just got to make sure those things sell. You got to go out a lot of money to bring those in. If they don't sell, you can really eat it hard. So.
Well, I know that they go over super well at Porky Butts.
Okay.
Those usually sell out super fast. But yeah, I totally understand your hesitance. Best barbecue experience you've ever had?
Phew. I've had so many of them. That one's tough. It would probably have to be. I was flown out to Nashville once, and I got to cook for the American Wagyu Beef Association. And it was their annual conference, so all the ranchers were there, and I got to choose what I wanted to cook, and they provided it to me. And to work with some of that meat was just incredible, like absolutely incredible. And just watching at the end, they closed with a cattle auction, and seeing those heifers go for $500,000, like no problem, just to be a breeding cow. It was crazy to watch. It was a lot of fun. And they had brought in me, and they had brought in a chef from LA who was from Japan. So he was a Japanese guy who was used to working with Wagyu. And then they brought in a chef from Chicago. And we're talking real deal culinary trained chefs, which I am not, and nor have I ever portrayed to be. And it was kind of fun. We did a little contest between the three of us. And at the end of that night, those guys came up to me and they said, "Do you realize you just wiped the floor with us?" And that was
wow.
That was a pretty cool feeling but I mean, it was all in fun, and we had a great time doing it. Everyone was super cool. But it was a lot of fun to work with ingredients that were that insane. Like we're talking New York strips that were $1,200, like insane marbling, like Gotta watch it. It cooks quick too. but man, that was probably my best barbecue experience. That was fun. I love to travel, so getting to do events in other parts of the country has been a blast. I've cooked from Florida, Nashville, San Francisco, L.A., all over. So it's been a lot of fun.
What's the most innovative thing that you've seen someone do in the barbecue world?
Well, we did a whole cow on an iron cross. That was pretty crazy, and that it took almost 2 days. It was nuts. It was insane. This iron cross, it would rotate, it would turn, built a big fire underneath it. We did a whole cow, like you would see a pig done. I also got the chance to cook with a guy from Brennan's in New Orleans, and we did a whole hog with him too, and we stuffed it with peaches, and that was a pretty cool experience as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked so much about how hard this business is, the hours that you work, just the amount of experience that you've had to accumulate to gain these skills. It's a very difficult line of work. At the end of the day, what keeps you in it?
Just the love of it, and seeing people like you that come in and get it and understand that it is high quality and it's something that's not readily available. I mean, yeah, you can get it, but I mean, it's not like it's not everywhere. Not everybody's doing the same kind of style that we are. So it's just something different, and bringing it to a new market and showing people that there's something different out there, and then finding out that they really like it. It's fun, and it's fun to talk to the customers. And I love talking to the barbecue guys that come in, the backyard barbecue guys that all want tips. I love giving tips out and seeing what they're doing in their backyards, and it's fun. It's just gratifying. It's a gratifying field to be in. Like I like the hospitality industry.
Well, I'm glad that you like it, because this just gives me another option to have fantastic barbecue.
And we'll keep doing it as long as people keep buying it. So
yeah. So listeners, go out and buy it. Like this is my full endorsement. Like, this is some of the most unique and best smoked meats you're going to find, not just in Omaha, but that I've had really anywhere. And I don't have extensive experience down in Texas or Austin, but this is some of the best meat that I've had. And so don't be like me. Don't be turned off by a 20-minute drive to Bellevue. That's nothing. That's what it takes to get anywhere in Omaha.
Takes an hour to get anywhere in Austin.
See, exactly.
Anywhere.
20 minutes is nothing. So go out to Mission Avenue Barbecue. Meet Scott. He'll give you tips if you want tips, but just go have some awesome food.
For sure. And yeah, ultimately I just hope everybody's enjoying what we're doing, and I hope that I'm giving a good representation of what you would find in Austin, Texas if you went down there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Scott, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure was all mine. Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.